Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel Microbiology Simplified. I am Dr. Amit Kumar Singh, MD Microbiology, working as professor. So let's moving on to the next video of the Parasitology lecture series. In the previous three videos, I have discussed about the various morphological forms of protozoan parasites. The link for the video you can get in the description. In this video, I am going to discuss about the various hosts of the protozoan parasites. So without wasting any time, let's start with the video. So first of all, what is a host? Host is an organism which harbors and provides nourishment to the parasite. Harbors and provide the nourishment to the parasite. That organism is called as host. So host is of two types, definitive host and intermediate host. So what is a definitive host? So definitive host is a host in which we can find the adult form of the parasite, or in which sexual reproduction occurs. So either of these or maybe both of these. So if that host harbors the adult form or in the host if sexual reproduction occurs, then that host is definitive host. And in intermediate host, if it harbors the larval stage or asexual reproduction is going on in that, so that such host is called as intermediate host. So intermediate host, which stage is found? Larval stage. And which type of reproduction occurs? Asexual reproduction. In definitive host, sexual reproduction occurs. So basically in definitive host, the parasite completes its life cycle, whereas in intermediate host, it stays for some time and spend the life asexually. That means it multiplies there asexually, whereas in definitive host, it multiplies sexually and completes its cycle. So this is the basic difference between the definitive host and intermediate host. But in protozoan parasite, as if you have gone through the previous three videos on the morphological forms of protozoan parasite, you must be knowing that they don't have adult form or larval stage. So the basis of differentiation between the definitive host and intermediate host in them is the method of reproduction. That what type of reproduction occurring in the host, sexual or asexual reproduction. So sexual reproduction usually occurs by gametogony and or sporogony. Basically, by sexual reproduction, what is formed? By sexual reproduction is formed oocyst, and what it contains? The oocyst contains the sporozoites, and this asexual reproduction occurs by binary fission. Okay, so this is basically a method of multiplying the number. So in intermediate host, the parasite just increases their number, whereas in definitive host, they form a stage in which they can reproduce sexually by producing oocyst. Okay, so this is the two different type of host which we come to know. So in protozoan parasites, again the same classification that they are classified ami, flagellate, ciliate and sporozoa. I am going to tell you this classification in all the lectures of the protozoan parasite, because you need to know that what are the various protozoan parasites. Okay, so this flow chart you will see in each and every lecture of mine. Okay, So again, amoebs and two types, intestinal free living, flagellates two types, lumen dwelling flagellates, hemoflagellates, and ciliates and sporozoa, which is again of two types, hematozoa and coccidia. Okay, so let's see what are the hosts in these various different types of protozoan parasites. Now you know what is definitive, what is intermediate. So I think there will be no confusion if I'll say uh, in this video that this is the definitive host and this is the intermediate host. Okay, so in amoeb, both of them, that is interfree living, in this lumen dwelling flagellate and in ciliate, if you remember, they have got cystic stage. The cystic stage is, they have got cystic state, and this cystic state is actually a resistant stage. This resistant stage means it is resistant to the external environment and can survive outside human host. So that means to complete its life cycle, they do not require any other host, because outside human host they can survive without any host in an external environment. So in them, that is in amoeb, in lumen dwelling flagellates and in ciliates, they have got only one host, that is human. So they have got only, this is one host, they have got one host, they also have one host, and this too. So only one host, and what is that host is human. Okay. However, if you remember that among the lumen dwelling flagellates, one genital flagellate, that is Trichomonas species, and this amoeboflagellate Dientamoeba fragilis, these two do not have cystic stage. Trichomonas and Dientamoeba fragilis, these two don't have cystic stage, but despite of that they have got single host. The mode of transmission in case of Dientamoeba is not clear, so I'm not going to discuss about this. However, in case of Trichomonas species, when they don't have cystic stage, they do not require any other host to complete their life cycle or to maintain their life cycle. However, they maintain their life cycle by transmitting person to person, and the usual mode of transmission from person to person is sexual transmission. So they are transmitted sexually, and that is why it is an STI. So Trichomonas vaginalis, because of its location, as it is located in the vaginal tract, it can be transmitted person to person through sexual mode, and that is why it is an important cause of sexually transmitted infection. So all these lumen dwelling flagellates, amoebs and ciliates have got only one host, and they are transmitted. These are transmitted not sexually. These are transmitted through fecal-oral route, and this is transmitted sexually. Okay. Now coming to the next flagellate, that is hemoflagellates. Hemoflagellates, the name itself suggests that these flagellate forms are present inside blood or tissue. So these flagellates are present in blood and tissue. So for the transmission of these flagellates from one person to another person, it has to be transmitted through a vector, and this vector should be a transmission should be done through with help of a vector, and this vector should be a blood sucking vector, because these flagellates are present in blood and tissue. So the vector should be a blood sucking vector. Okay, so the vector is an insect. Okay, and then they have got two hosts because of this reason. So definitely one may be a definitive host and other will be an intermediate host. But in hemoflagellates, there is no sexual reproduction occurs, there is no adult worm, there is no larval stage. Then how to differentiate which is definitive host and which is intermediate host? So if you remember, I told that it is the host in which it completes its life cycle that is called as definitive host. So in case of hemoflagellates, the definitive host are human, because in humans they complete their life cycle, and also humans are a reservoir of infection. Okay, whereas the intermediate host is insect, through which they are transmitted from one person to another person. So if you remember, there are two main species of hemoflagellate which causes human diseases. One is trypanosoma and another is leishmania. So in trypanosoma, there are again two species, brucei and brucei. So the vector for brucei is sessefly. The scientific name is Glossina, Glossina species. And the vector for brucei is triotamine bug or redovid bug, tritomine bug or redovid bug. Whereas in case of leishmania, the insect vector is sandfly. Scientific name is phlebotomus. Phlebotomus species, the common species is Phlebotomus argentipes. Okay. So hemoflagellates have got two hosts, one insect host and one human host. And out of these, human hosts are definitive hosts because they are reservoir, and insect hosts transmit the disease from one person to another person by sucking the blood of the infected person. In case of Trypanosoma brucei, the insect host is sessefly, Glossina, and in case of Trypanosoma cruzi, triotamine bug or redovid bug. In case of Leishmania, sandfly, that is Phlebotomus species. Okay. Now coming to the host seen in case of sporozoan. So in case of sporozoan, the hematozoa, this hematozoa, Plasmodium and Babesia, and this toxoplasma, this coccidian, these three have got two hosts and this have got one host. So let's understand why these have got two hosts and why these have got only one host or single host. So the name itself is sporozoan, suggests that they contain something spore-like. So basically the oocyst is spore-like in this case, or this oocyst, why I'm calling it spore-like, because it contains sporozoites, and this oocyst containing sporozoite is the infective stage. Okay, so this oocyst containing sporozoite, and this sporozoites are the oocyst containing sporozoites are infective stage. So what it has to do with the number of the host? So that means in them sexual reproduction is occurring. But if you have gone through my videos on the morphological forms, you must be knowing that both hematozoa and coccidia contain oocysts. Then why these three, Cyclospora, Cryptosporidium, has got only one host? Why not two hosts? One in which one host and the parasite will reproduce sexually, and in one host the parasite will reproduce sexually. No, in case of these three coccidian parasite, sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction both occurs in single host, that is human. human, both sexual and asexual stages occurs. Okay, so that is why they have got one host. Whereas in case of this hematozoa, that is Plasmodium, Babesia, and this Toxoplasma, this sexual reproduction occurs in another host. In case of Plasmodium, the sexual reproduction occurs in insect vector, that is female Anopheles. Okay, whereas in case of Babesia, it occurs in ixodid ticks. Okay, ixodid ticks. And in case of Toxoplasma, the sexual reproduction occurs in cat or other felines. Okay, sexual reproduction occur in case of Toxoplasma in cats and other felines. So this Plasmodium, this female Anopheles is which host? What type of host? Definitive or intermediate? What is occurring in them? Sexual reproduction or asexual? Sexual reproduction. Oocyst is formed in sexual reproduction. Oocyst is formed in sexual reproduction in insect vector. So in female Anopheles, sexual reproduction occurring. So it is a definitive host. Similarly, in case of Babesia, sexual reproduction occurring in ixodid ticks. So again, it is a definitive host. In case of Toxoplasma, sexual reproduction is occurring in cat. So again, it is a definitive host. Okay, and human in these three are intermediate host. Humans are intermediate host. Whereas in case of this Cyclospora, Cryptosporidium, Cystoisospora, the sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction both occur inside the human host. So they have got only one host, no definitive, no intermediate. Both host is human only. Okay, and also one point I want to add, that this sexual reproduction which occurs in these three forms occur inside intestinal epithelial cells. So because of that, these structures, these sexual reproduction structure, that microgamete, macrogamete, merozoites, these cannot be seen in the stool because these stage occurs in the intestinal epithelial cells. Only the oocyst which comes out from the ruptured epithelial cells will be seen in the stools. Okay, stool specimen. So these sexual reproduction stages cannot be seen in the stool examination of these three coccidian parasites, that is Cyclospora, Cryptosporidium, and Cystoisospora. One more thing which I want to add in this definition of definitive host, intermediate host, that on the basis of number of hosts, the life cycle is of two type. One is direct life cycle and one is indirect life cycle. Direct life cycle, when there is only one host, then that type of life cycle is called as direct life cycle. And when there is two or more hosts, then that type of life cycle is called as indirect life cycle, because the total life cycle is not completing a single host, it is utilizing an intermediate host. So such life cycle is called as indirect life cycle. So I hope in this video you will be able to understand the number of hosts, and also if you will be able to remember the name of the host. So just use a basic concept that in case of amoeba, that and lumen-dwelling flagellate and ciliate, as they have got cystic hysteria, so they don't need any another host, so they have got only one host. Hemoflagellate are the flagellate which are present in the blood, so they need a blood sucking insect or vector to complete their life cycle. So that's why these insects are the second host and they are intermediate hosts in this case. And again in Sporozoa, Hematozoa are present in blood. So again, a blood-sucking insect will be needed to complete the life cycle, and as the sexual reproduction occurring in them, so they are the definitive host. Whereas in case of coccidia, the mode of transmission in case of the first three, that is the opportunistic parasite causing diarrhea, Cyclospora, Cryptosporidium, and Cystoazospora, the number of hosts is 1 because sexual and asexual reproduction both occur in them only. Whereas in case of toxoplasma, it occurs by ingestion of the tissue cyst present inside the definitive host. So they have got two hosts. One is definitive host, which is the cat or other feline, and one is intermediate host, that is human. So I hope in this video I was able to explain about the host of various protozoan parasites and the name. So just go through this video and try to understand the concept and try to remember it with the concept without just memorizing, without knowing the basic. Okay, so hope you will like this video. All the best for examination. Take care. Bye bye.